Welcome to the Graceful Exit podcast. I'm Kimberlee Hoertz, founder of the Graceful Exit, created to educate, empower, and support women as they navigate divorce. Beginning with us, we are putting a stop to the divorce stigma through meaningful conversations about the emotional and endearing experience divorce often brings. My hope is that you'll follow along on this journey and join our community of women navigating divorce with grace. Good morning, everybody. Today I have the amazing opportunity to sit down with Nina Blaicher, and she is here to share her story. Part of the Graceful Exit is really giving women a platform to share your voice and your story of those that have gone before us and have gotten through divorce and gotten to the other side. And Nina is a shining example of that. We've had the pleasure to meet through social media, but have gotten to know each other on a personal level and have very similar stories in a sense. And I'm just so excited to have you on. So do you want to give us a little bit of background of your marriage, your divorce, and where you are in the journey?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Kim. I'm so excited to be here. And for my own journey, hearing and sharing stories has been so important in keeping me inspired and positive and believing what's possible, that I definitely want to pass that along. And I think all of us going through divorce kind of have that same sentiment that we made it here somehow, some way, through all the women and people and family that have supported us. And we definitely want to share that and give that back. It's so important. Yeah. So I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So as we talked about, I have a blog and website called See the Upside. I also have a podcast, and it's really focused on finding positivity after divorce. And we can talk a little bit more about that. Mm-hmm. And then I'm also a realtor in Arizona, focused on helping families relocate here, whether you're divorced or not. I'm here to help. And I'm starting another podcast concept with another realtor friend of mine that's going to be about all the good things about living in Arizona. So for all you California people who are looking to relocate, we'll share with you all of our best resources and why it's so great to live here. So that's coming down the pike and is exciting new development, and really blending my passion for supporting women and people going through divorce along with living here in Arizona and finding and living your best life. So that's kind of where I'm at work-wise and in that area. So divorce-wise, my divorce was finalized about a year and a half ago. And as we all know, those of us who have been through divorce, and I wouldn't have known this before divorce, that it takes a long time. Even if you're very agreeable and it's simple, it's just a process that has things that you have to work through and talk about, and it just takes a while. So I have been separated for about 3 years now. Mm-hmm. And it was a challenge. I had a lot of challenges with my divorce. I like to describe it that my life was the complete teardown reconstruction that, at the time of my divorce, it just so happened that I was working for a family business. The company was sold, so I had a new job. Financially, my life was a teardown reconstruction. I had to move and find a new place to live. Really just every single thing in my life changed. And then some of the things that you kind of know to some degree, but you don't really know till you're living it and feeling it, is that your life, your world, your friendships, all of that changes in divorce too. And even though I have really amazing friends and family, it just inevitably changes. So it was really, really hard. And I think that, one of the things I'd really like people to know is that no matter what you're going through, no matter how difficult it is, you have support. You will get through it. Even if it's multidimensional, like mine was and like yours was, where you're working through so many different things, and you feel like you can't get up and face your day, you do. You just do little by little by little, and you work your way through it.
Yeah, where are
So,
some of the places that you did find support? I know that was part of a difficult time for me while going through it. You know, I was the first of so many friends and family members to go through it. And yes, I had family that were there by my side, but really didn't have the understanding and empathy of going through it firsthand. So curious to know where did you find your support throughout?
well, and I think that's an important point to make, Kim, that someone who hasn't been through it can't quite understand it. They
Yes.
just can't. It's kind of like,
Nor do you wish them to.
well, yeah, right. Of course. Absolutely. So, inevitably, I think in divorce, you're drawn to the people who are experienced, who can help guide you a little bit based on their wisdom and experience that they've been through. Now, every divorce is going to be a little different, but I had some really good girlfriends that had been through really, really tough, complicated divorces, like yours was, like mine was. And I think it's important to have those people that you can really just be really raw with, really honest with.
Vulnerable, yeah.
Because it is so much weight to carry. And even if your marriage was unhealthy or even toxic, you still have a grieving process to go through. And I really didn't understand that as a friend showing up for other friends going through divorce before I went through divorce myself. You know, I had friends who were leaving toxic relationships, and I was like, oh, you know, this is better for you. It's, you know, you're on the up and up now. You've made the decision. But it's not that simple. There's so much complexity to it. You become what I like to call untethered, where you, even if your tether or your anchor, if you will, was not very safe or not healthy, it still is in disconnected feeling where you're alone and on your own in a way that is different from any other time in your life that you never expected to be. And yes, it has a lot of positive independence to it and excitement and possibility. And you get to that, you get to those places where you can appreciate that. But you also have to kind of process and feel the feelings and learn to get comfortable with the solitude, with the alone time, with the independence. And it's like a muscle, you know, you have to practice, you have to get used to it, you have to get comfortable in it.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's one of the questions I get asked the most, with especially with those women that have children. It's like you live and die for your kids at any given point. So when you don't have them, most of the time, 50%, it's like you don't know what to do with your free time. You know, but I think it's so important to your point is to finding that independence and being able to focus on you too. And that's okay. A lot of women, you know, have a hard time focusing on themselves when they've been putting their kids first. But I think it's important to be healthy and happy for your children too. And it's okay to spend time on you.
Yeah, and I think it's not only okay, it's something you're being called to do. And it's really in a responsibility we have in this life to fill our own cups, to understand ourselves, to make a connection with ourselves, to become our best selves. And the way I like to think about it when you relate it to kids, and of course, we as moms love to show up for our kids. We love to live for our kids. But would we want our kids to be that same way? I wouldn't want my daughters or my son to lose themselves in their own kids. I want them to show their kids how to be an independent, sovereign being and responsible, happy, giving, loving, contributing human on this planet. So why shouldn't we be doing that? And I think there's this misconception that it's self-centered or selfish, but it's not. It's actually rising to become our best selves. And it's our kind of our duty. You know, we need to show our girls how we want them to be in the world, and that to shine your light and be your best self and have personal interests, and even going into other things like having boundaries and saying no to things. That is all part of being your best self. And it's not a bad thing. And I think we as women got kind of lost in that. And many of us who have been in unhealthy relationships, maybe even more so, where we don't really know how to do that, where again, it feels super uncomfortable, even though our heads know we're supposed to do that and it's right. It's like we have these ingrained experiences that have kind of took us down a different path, and we need to kind of relearn everything and become better.
I would agree. I think divorce, the biggest opportunity it gave for me is a second chance at life. A little bit more educated. Yes, I have all these kids in tow, but I now have the knowledge and strength and grit. No, to your point, you kind of have everything rebirthed when you go through it. And that's why I absolutely love the idea about seeing the upside on the other side of it, right? And this is your opportunity to shine and to educate the next generation, so your kids don't have to live through some of the pain that you may have lived through.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's, as we're saying, it's not comfortable to go through that transition and that growth, but I think all really transformational experiences, all big growth has to have some discomfort or pain in it to get the lesson for real. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, sometimes on occasion, I think about who would I be if I were still married? You know, would I have grown in the same way? Would I have transformed in the same way? Well, obviously not in the same way, but I don't know that it would have been great for me to have just stayed there.
Yeah.
So,
What is some of the advice you would offer those that are going through it? I know you kind of mentioned it, and I kind of will paraphrase, but I often tell people that divorce is a marathon and not a sprint, right? And that's going to be an entire journey, and it's not going to happen overnight. Nor is going to happen in a year. I think, especially with those of us that have kids and are co-parenting, this is a long journey ahead of us. So that's one of the tangible pieces of advice I offer, is just realize that this is a lifestyle that you're going to have to live with, and to try and find that joy in it. What about you? What are some of the tangible pieces of advice you can offer those women in it?
yeah, well, I think, you know, as you said, yes, it's a long road, and it's really one of those things that you learn to live with. You don't recover from divorce. You don't really even quite heal from it. You heal with it. You learn how to live with the grief and work through all of the things. I mean, grief is a process. And I guess, you know, for me, I thought healing was going to be a gradual trajectory upwards, but that's not how it goes. You know, I think in the beginning, there's a lot of heaviness, there's a lot of strong feelings, there's anger, there's resentment, there's incredible sadness and regret. All those things are so heavy and deep, but they still come in different ways on the path as you work through them. And so I would say just have a lot of patience, have a lot of grace for yourself, have understanding, be compassionate. You know, one of the things that I'm really good at is having understanding and compassion for other people, but not so much for myself. And I've had to sort of learn that, to not get frustrated when I get triggered by old feelings, or I feel, you know, a sad feeling come up, because what will happen is, you know, you'll be a year out or a couple months out or whatever, and you'll think you'll have worked through something, and then something will happen. You might be on a date, you might run into your ex, you might have one of your kids say something that really hurts you. and you just get those old feelings coming back again. And that's okay. You're allowed to do that. So I would just say, have a lot of grace, be patient, and just allow yourself to heal in the way that's true for you, and be experimental, try different things. If someone tells you, oh, meditation worked for me, it was amazing, which it did for me. I mean, I love meditating, but for you, it might be prayer, or for you, it might be cooking or biking or just sitting still or whatever it is. So I would say, if you hit roadblocks and you get stuck, or you have those moments where those hard feelings come up, find your own way that works for you and experiment, play around, try new things. I mean, there are so many ways we can fill our hearts, our souls, make our bodies feel good. And I feel like that's one of the most inspiring things in my own kind of divorce healing and awakening, is really cracking open the possibility of all the different resources and things we have to make ourselves feel good and become our best selves. It can be books, it can be podcasts, it can be conversations like this. Whatever it is, just keep trying different things, and know that you're supposed to have moments of failure. You're supposed to have moments where you don't feel good. That's part of it.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
No, it's so true. And I'm actually 4 years post-divorce, and I have experienced some of those triggers and feelings again. It actually ended me up on bed rest for the last 4 months. But in order for me to heal and go through it again, you have to take that time out for yourself and know that, okay, this is all part of the healing process. And because of what I lived through in the trauma and abuse, it was so bad that I never took the time to dig deep and heal from it. But yet 4 years later, I'm still having to live through it. So I had to try something different and more in depth than versus prior to this, I would just continue to put on a Band-Aid, right? And just keep going and going and going. But it's not until you hit that rock bottom sometimes where you kind of have to relook in the mirror and say, okay, I have to try something different because this isn't working. But I think that's one of the, I don't want to say opportunities, but I guess healing process of divorce is that you do have some of that time to yourself. And it's important that you take that time for yourself to figure out, okay, hey, I have a whole new life ahead of me. What does this look like in this time that I don't have my children, to focus on you or, yourself in that healing process. So I very much agree with different alternatives and finding what works best for you. My next question would be, I so appreciate your positivity and being on the other side of divorce and just sharing that light. So what for you has been the most joyful thing about this entire journey?
I think just realizing that we can choose positivity. I was not always like this. I was not even like this in my marriage. I'm a Virgo, I'm a firstborn, therefore, and I'm an Enneagram 3. Like, I'm a worrier, I'm a stressor, I'm a planner, I'm a,
So familiar.
I'm like trying to figure out the worst case scenario so I can be prepared for it.
Yeah.
Well, I realized I don't have to do that. And to your point of this new time alone in this new space, I think in that space of divorce, there is a lot of unknown, and really taking that unknown and deciding that it's going to be good. You don't have to take the unknown and be afraid. The unknown doesn't have to be bad or fearful or any of those things. It can be filled with possibility and opportunity. It's a glasses half full thing. You can choose it, and you can train your mind and your heart to feel and think that way. And that's basically what I did. I was not this way. I just realized that I could try choosing it. And I started doing it, and I started actually feeling better. And I stopped being a martyr, doing all the crappy jobs and being the cleanup girl and the dumping ground for the problems, and decided I'm not going to take that anymore. I've even changed the way I function at work, the way I communicate with my friendships, what I accept in a friendship and a relationship. And it's not bad. It's a loving thing that I'm doing for myself, that I can show up as my best self and feel good, so I can spread light and joy and happiness and positivity. But I don't feel that way all the time. I mean, I don't want to misrepresent this, that it's a rainbows and unicorns world. That's not reality. And we don't want that either. It's the balance of authenticity and positivity. It's when those hard feelings come that we were talking about, that you let them come in and you feel them, and you listen to your body like you did when you had your moment where your body was literally telling you, I can't do this anymore. You need to listen to me. You need to slow down. So listening to the feelings when, let's say, maybe one of your friends says something and it triggers you, makes you feel bad. Well, why? Where's that feeling coming from? What is that feeling? And feeling it authentically and understanding it, but then realizing you don't have to stay there. You don't have to stay stuck. You don't have to react to it. You're just acknowledging it. And then you're going, all right, what makes me feel good? How can I turn this into growth, light, positivity, and not not accept it. If someone says something terrible to you that doesn't feel good, it's not necessarily about you. It's not, it's happy people don't do things like that, and
a quick question. You had
yeah.
mentioned you were not always this way. So what made you shift, and how long did it take you to shift?
Honestly, I think it was just, part of it was probably even just the decision to get divorced, to not live in the environment that kind of brought out all this stress in me. So my ex-partner was very charismatic, dynamic, fun, free flow, where I was more safety, responsible. So we were yin and yang, which worked when things were good. But when some really difficult life circumstances came out, it felt incredibly chaotic to me and was very stressful. And we did not manage hard things in our lives well together, because we just handled them very differently. So I think the decision, the kind of empowerment to realize that the self-awareness that I didn't want to live this way, and it wasn't good for me, and it wasn't making me show up as my best self, and changing my life, and then going through all the hard things in my divorce. And, when as Glennon Doyle says, we can do hard things. And when we do hard things, what happens is you realize how powerful you really are in a good way. Like, wow, I can do this. And it makes you feel good. Right. So I think I just started deciding to choose things that were good for me, that made me feel good, and realize that I have a choice. So it was all kind of combined, but really mostly related to my divorce, and was really the best thing that came out of that. Not even necessarily related to my marriage or anything, but just more related to me finding that self-awareness, that how do you say it? Like your own empowerment to make yourself happy. We choose that, and to stop expecting or needing or believing that someone else can do it. They can't.
Yeah, a lot of the women I'm talking to have a sense of codependency on their spouse or their ex-spouse. And once you have that untethering, as you put it really puts everything into perspective and what you can do for your life. And you don't need to find joy in what others are giving you. You know, you need to be able to provide it for yourself. To your point, you got to fill that cup. You have to figure out what makes you happy so that you can spread this on the other side. So I so appreciate that piece of advice.
Yeah. And it's a practice, I don't get it right all the time. I mean, and that's another thing I think I learned is it's not about arriving. It's not about mastering. It's about learning how to guide yourself back.
Yeah, I would so agree. And again, 4 years post, I've had so many trials and errors where I take 10 steps forward, 2 steps back, but that's part of the journey and that's okay. And again, you kind of spoke about grace. Part of our name, obviously, is the Graceful Exit. So I always like to ask others, what does grace mean to you?
I think grace is showing up for yourself, showing up for life, finding good things in hard moments, and choosing not to let hard things and pain kind of bring out negativity in you. So, letting yourself, and it's really what all the things we've been talking about, that allowing yourself to be authentic and live your truth, but that really isn't a negativity. We're all inherently good, even the people who have hurt us, even the people that, seem negative all the time. They're that way because something hurt them,
Agreed.
So I think grace is really knowing yourself, choosing good for yourself, which allows you to show up for your best self and being able to share that and pass it along with the world. I mean, having grace is having conversations like we're having, and hopefully inspiring other women who are going through hard times, whether it's divorce or something else, that we are here. You can do it. There are ways to manage this. And you've got a tribe of women all around you who want to see you succeed and shine and thrive. And that often in those hard moments, those are your diamond creating moments, that maybe in the moment it feels like you're in the fetal position and everything's crumbling around you, but really it is your diamond creation moment. That's the moment. It's those hard moments that will make you, that will push you to rise and shine in the best possible version that you could never have done without the depths of that pain.
I agree. I agree. Vulnerability of this entire journey has probably brought the closest connections for me. And I know that's part of, our mission is to be able to give women a platform to share their voice and connect and have empathy for one another. But not until you can to kind of shed that and be vulnerable do you find these authentic connections with others. So I so appreciate you being able to share part of your story. What is any tangible advice of hope that you would give for this community?
I would just say we all have hope. I mean, there's always hope, and it's in that unwritten possibility. I mean, we're here today. What happened to us yesterday doesn't define us. That's not our lives. Anybody, anytime can reinvent themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever you started with is not how you're going to finish this life. Most really successful people came from really difficult beginnings.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that makes gives you the tools, the strength, the grit to really rise high. And so I think there's there's just always hope. You'll have moments where it doesn't feel like that. I understand that. And I still go there. I've been there.
Yeah.
And they're hard, but you don't stay there. You find the things you discover, like we're talking about, you research, you discover the things that help you. It might be a phone call to a friend. It might be a walk outside. A walk outside does amazing things for me when I have a bad day, or listening to your favorite playlist, like really simple, beautiful things that can just shift you a little bit so that you change that trajectory up into hope and positivity.
I so agree. And part of your mission, I know, is that hope and positivity. And I'm understanding that's how See the Upside was born. Do you want to talk a little bit about the birth of See the Upside, how that was all formed, and then what you are offering to this community that is going through this?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when I first went through divorce, it was just, I felt like I was blindfolded with my arms tied behind my back. Like I just had no idea how to navigate anything. I mean, from finding a lawyer to, I don't even know where to begin. I mean, the emotional side, I just was not remotely prepared for all of that. And some of that, I think you have to experience. Some, there could be definitely more guidance. But, I just decided that I really wanted to share resources and guidance and really hope and positivity, what we've been talking about, with other people going through the same thing, so that they could know there is a way out, that there is a path forward, that you're not alone, that there are a lot of women out here that have survived this and figured it out. And we can each share, each of us has something that we can give you that will make the journey a little bit less painful, a little bit easier, a little bit better. So I started writing really at the beginning of COVID, and I wasn't really sure what this was going to look like, how it was going to be structured. And it just kind of free flowed out of me naturally. I've never particularly been a writer. I've never been, honestly, my parents are Norwegian and German. We aren't big emoters. Like I'm learning.
Yes.
And I've become a lot more vulnerable and open, but through this process, but we didn't really talk about, deep, dark feelings and things like that. So I just kind of started writing what was on my heart, and it really became more of that emotional process of divorce, not so much the logistics, although I'm totally open to helping anybody, especially in Arizona, navigating those logistics, because I really did have to pull in different pieces to navigate my particular roadshow. So, and then I loved having conversations like this with people, and decided, hey, you know what? I really want to start a podcast. So, and I've been in web design, graphic design, so I was pretty technically savvy, and I was able to figure out GarageBand and Buzzsprout and all that good stuff, and just kind of got it up and running. And to be honest, I love the writing. I think there's a book in the works for me for sure. I would love to do that. I've kind of started one. It's probably going to take a long time, but I really, really adore these podcast conversations, talking to people like you. It just, makes my heart want to burst. It's so fun and so inspiring, and so just spreads positivity and helping each other, help our businesses. That's what this world and this life is about, helping each other out. So the podcast is great. And that's really what I'm focusing on now, is the podcast, and then a book. And then I'm putting together some concepts on, what other kind of resources could I offer that would be helpful. I've been kind of waiting to allow that to organically unfold. So I think there's a lot of different things in the future that will be coming through. And then, as I mentioned, the real estate podcast and will be coming soon too, which is really exciting, sharing Arizona life with people, which I love. I've really loved settling down here. It's been really fun.
Yeah, I think the most important piece out of this and what you share with this community is that sense of community, right? And bringing people together and the vulnerability and just sharing the connections of this entire journey. It's so, so important. And gosh, I can't thank you enough for you taking the time to just share your positivity, your vulnerability, and just guidance for those that are going through this. It is a journey. But gosh, you're just such a shining bright light to know that you can get through it on the other side, and you bring so much joy and peace. And I just want to say thank you so much for your time and just coming on and sharing your story. So I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you so much, Kim. Your work is amazing as well. I mean, I feel the exact same way about you. You're so positive and you work so hard and you're connecting people to all the resources they need. And it's conversations like this that is really going to facilitate change and empower women to get through whatever difficult path they have and turn it into something really amazing.
Yeah,
So I love
agree.
that.
Well, thank you, Nina. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Kim. I so appreciate the opportunity. It was a total pleasure.